Folks, welcome to Software Testing Hacks. Today, we are going to discuss some of the scenario based software testing interview questions. These are most commonly asked while you are attending the interview, whenever you are pressured or whenever you are experienced. But we will try to understand how you can manage such situations. For that, we would need to answer this type of question. So, couple of them I have documented. So let's start. Before we begin, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. Get started. Whenever release is in next 2 hours, and as a set tester, if you have found a blocker bug, then what you will do? So this is the scenario. First thing first. First, what we will do? We will raise the bug because we have found that there is an issue. First, we will have to go log it as a bug. Then discuss with the team lead or manager and call the development team to see if they can replicate and fix it or whether you can have some workaround you have to check that. So what happens is first you will log a bug. So suppose you have a issue and also your production release is in next 2 hours. So it is a difficult situation. It is a critical time. First you have to raise a bug and then you have to directly go and talk to your lead or else your manager that you have found this issue. And before you go right, you have to check whether there is any other workaround. Workaround is nothing but any alternate solution that you can find. Suppose say you have a landing page upon which you have a login button at the top and a login button at the bottom. One of the link is not working. Say on click of the login button at the bottom, it is broken. Okay, but the login button at the top is working fine. So there is a workaround. Instead of clicking on login on this, login button at the bottom, if you click on the login button at the top, it works. So there is a way where customer can log in actually, right? So that's how you have to find if there is any other workaround. If we have a workaround, it is always suggested to go it for now, as the fix may create new issues. Okay, so if you find that there is a workaround, then definitely it is better now. You can go live, but later you have to fix it. There is no other option, but later fine, you have to fix it. Either you can go for hot fix or else you can based on the priority of the bug. Okay, in this case, in whatever the example I have told you, we have to fix it as soon as possible. Otherwise, during the call itself, if you find that while during the deployment itself, if you have found that there is an issue, then you have to fix it, right? You have to give immediate fix, and then only it will be easy for uh, production like, go live, right? If we don't have discuss with a product owner and analyze the business impacts based on uh, either we have to fix it or notify the customer that it's a known issue for the patch and we fix it later and then deploy. This completely depends on the severity of the defect. How it is impacting the customers matters the most. Suppose the login page, in the example that I gave, no, if the page is having just one login button, and if you click on that, it is not getting navigated to the right page and it is broken. That's where you have to fix it and then only you have to deploy it. There is no other option. Such cases, you have to it depends, completely depends on what type of defect it is. If it is a minor or major issue, then that is okay. And if we have any workaround, that is also okay. Otherwise, we have to hard stop it, fix it, go to the production. Okay. So this is one of the scenario-based interview question. Let's say you have 50 test cases to execute and you have limited time to deliver. You cannot take any other resource for help. So you will have to execute these test cases to deliver on time. What will be your strategy? So for an experienced guy, this type of question we will most frequently get. You have a lot of test cases to be executed, but you don't have any other resource help you cannot take, and but you have to complete. There is a deadline. How will you manage such a situation? So only by the experience, only such scenarios can be answered. That time, prioritize the test cases depending on risk, cost, time, and other factors. Okay, first is prioritization. Ask yourself, why did we end up in this situation? Sometimes there could be a client requirement and you will be packed up with lot of work. If it is because of that, sometimes we may have to tolerate that and we have to work for it, right? First, you ask yourself if it is an issue with project side or if it is an issue from your side, if some of the resources are on leave or any of the things that has affected this to be overflown, right? Use feature toggle where you release the product, test in production, and release again with just a toggle one. You are sure it works as expected. Sometimes, um, I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. If we have a new feature and we have committed that we will be releasing this feature in the upcoming sprint. Okay. In the upcoming sprint, but now we have the tight schedules, but still we have to complete it because our deadline is to complete the feature testing within the given time. So we have to complete the testing before it goes to the production. You have to test it thoroughly. Sometimes there is a risk involved in that. If it goes to the prod in later point, if there is any issue with that, then you cannot roll back because it is a whole new feature, or else if you're adding, if it is affecting some other modules also, it is a difficult situation, right? So what you can do is you can set it behind the feature. There is a concept called feature flag. Okay. Whenever you are building a new feature, you can toggle on the feature flag so that the new features will be available. Once you toggle it off, it will be back to the older state. So there is a concept of feature flag. So we can use that methodology or that technique to save us from certain extent rather than affecting it in the real production. We can somehow manage it. If there is any issue, we can toggle it off and then later we can fix it and then go ahead for it. So that's how you can answer this question. It completely depends on the how much work is left and then what are the other factors that matters. Highlight the risk to the stakeholders. Even if you complete the test cases within this specified amount of time, and you have to specify, so there could be any issue, there are chances of this may affect the customer, this may affect the customer, so those things you just have to draft and then send it to the stakeholders so that they will be aware in case if anything goes wrong, so they will be aware that yeah, this is already a known thing, right? Yeah. When the developer is not ready to accept the issue at any cost in the situation, what will you do? So this is also one of the quite commonly asked question. So always there will be a fight between developers and testers, right? For this matter. So this is also one of the question. Understand why he is not accepting the bug. Sometimes we might have misunderstood the feature or the requirement. Okay, so that can also be the possible case. If it is as per requirement, check that add mention comments, close or cancel it. So it completely depends. So first think whether your understanding is correct or not, and from developer, whatever developer has told is right or not. Just analyze. Okay. And then you have to mention it in the ticket itself. In the comment section itself, you just mention that. So this is what my understanding is. So that I feel this is a defect. So that there will be a clarity, even if somebody later comes and sees that, they will get to know, yes, this whether they can accept the defect or not, so that you can go and take the help of other stakeholders or other managers. As a whole team we work, right? So we can take others help too. If not replicated, try different ways and see what's different in dev and QA machines. Okay. Sometimes my machine behaves a different way and the developer's machine may behave in a different way. That's also possible. Some of the times that happens. So recheck it. Try to whatever you have tested is reproducible in others system or not also, and other environments also. Just check that. So that's how you can prove that whatever you have said is right or not. You can go and prove it. If you if you think that is a bug, then definitely you have to uh, log up defect and then you have to take it forward from then. But if you feel that this is not a defect after further analysis, then you can go ahead, close that defect also. If everything is same and still unable to replicate QA or dev, then adding comments seems this is an inconsistent issue. And if we found again, we will open the bug or we will reopen the same ticket also. So that also be possible. Okay, so the next question is, while reviewing the necessary regression tests that are needed for particular story, you notice there are currently no automated tests available. Please describe what your next step would be. Okay. While reviewing the necessary regression tests that are needed for a particular story, you notice there are currently no automated tests available for that particular feature. Okay, what do you do then? First, look at the features that are not covered and see those are done repeatedly. And if it is a critical issue or critical features, then try to create some tasks and cover them along with the other works or make this as a priority because the coverage is important. So at that time, you have to see if there is no coverage, then later also you can add the tests. If not critical features, then still have a ticket or task to track automation for those. And whenever any QA gets time, ask them to stop and automate it. Okay. So this is one kind of question. And also sometimes there are chances of asking this type of question also. Okay. Going ahead, say you have 100 regression test cases and 4 days to execute it, but you can execute only 20 per day. What you will do in this situation? You have to execute all 100. You can't leave any. Okay. So what is the in this situation? How do you handle it? Okay. There are a lot of test cases more than whatever you can put effort for, right? So you can manage it by asking your lead to give an extra tester who can complete 5 test cases daily. So that 5 test cases, 4 days would complete 20. So there is an extra 20 test cases. So you can ask the lead to provide you another resource so that you will be able to complete the task. You have a stretch for some days to complete. You have to stretch basically. Sometimes you also may have to execute 25 test cases. That would also be possible, right? Sometimes you may have to stretch a bit and then, you know, uh, stretch and work for a little more time. That is also one thing you can do. Take the help of automation and execute the remaining manual cases. First, you run the automation, and if you know how much is covered, you can just see in the report how much coverage you know is being done through automation. So you can just see that, and then remaining thing, you can go and do it manually. So those are the things that we can do. Okay. And the next question is, there is a client issue. One developer is on leave for the entire week, and other developers are in training. The issue needs to be escalated urgently, and it has come to the tester to find the root cause of the problem. How will the testers approach me, sorry. So sometimes happens that you will be asked to do the root cause analysis. Okay. Whenever there is an issue, first it will come to QA. We have to check what has caused the issue. So before you go to the developer, first you have to do a kind of research by yourself, right? So what you have to do is, if it's a front end issue, you can quickly check if the issue is reproducible or not. Issue is reproducible, you can try to figure out if customer is using customized data or if it's direct issue. You can also try to find if there are any workaround that could help the customer to unblock issue. If there is no workaround, you can create a bug, and based on the priority and severity of issue, you can escalate it to the development manager and see if they can provide quick fix or rollback, you know, rollback of the production build. Sometimes customers only will uh, insert the data which are not correct ones. Sometimes that happens. It may not be a bug also. Okay. So at that time you can check, and then you can say back, you can comment it out saying that I tried to reproduce this, it is not reproducible. Looks like this is a data issue. Okay. But in case you find that this is a real issue, then you have to get it fixed, right? If based on the priority, okay, you can prioritize, because if the severity is high, then we have to fix it immediately only. If it is of high severity, then go ahead and say that, yeah, this is what is happening, and we want this to be fixed quickly, as soon as possible. So such type of scenarios you have to handle it. Okay, so if it is a front end issue, this is how you can do it. Okay, you have found that there is a back end issue. Okay, then what you can do is, you can go to the backend servers. You can basically check the APIs, analyze the logs, and figure out which particular calls for failing. Once you identify them, you can try to reproduce the issue locally. If the issue can be reproducible locally, then try to find any workarounds. If there are no any workarounds, inform the customer. If there is no workaround, sorry, if there are any workarounds, then go ahead and inform the customer. If there is no workaround, then create the bug, and based on the priority and severity of the issue, you can escalate it to the development manager and see if they can provide quick fix or rollback production build. Sometimes it happens for a couple of users and it is not for all the users. That that is okay. Okay. That we can keep a track of one of the customer. If it is happening for all the customers, then it would be a very much issue, right? So at that time, you can check and then you can report it based on what the severity is. Then you will have to prioritize the defect, and you have to see that. if it is for specific customers that is happening, or else if it is happening for all the customers. So all that you have to analyze and check it in the logs if there are any errors that is found in the logs. Okay, you have to do some research by yourself, and then only uh, you can report, or else based on that you can take the action. What are the key challenges of software testing that you faced in your career? So this is quite commonly asked question actually. So what are the challenges that you have faced till now? Okay, so that they would be interested to know. Unstable application under test, which is nothing but, suppose there are some times where we face the stability of the application because sometimes the server goes down. Such scenarios can happen. So because of that, it leads to the instability of the application. It behaves weirdly sometimes. So that is because only in a testing environment that occurs most commonly. Okay, so that is one of the challenge. Time constraint. While testing, you may face, this is one of the common challenge, right? So you can mention about the time constraint. If you have faced any specific time constraint, you can give the example of it also. Understanding and analyzing the requirement. So sometimes it is a challenging in case if there is a story which is quite complex, right? At that time, understanding of the story is difficult, and analyzing that requirements. And even though if we cover those test cases, sometimes there are chances of missing some of the test or corner cases also. Changing requirements. So it happens that we can, in agile, that is one major concern, right? So there are chances of changing requirements. So if you have faced any such issue, you can mention about it. Lack of domain knowledge and business user perspective understanding. So if you have faced anything in such a way, you can give an example and then demonstrate. I mean, you can tell that this is what I have faced, because as I was a new to this project and new to this domain, I was not able to catch up with the requirements and I able to understand the topics. So that's where I faced the challenge. Prioritizing the test cases. So prioritizing the test cases could also be some of the challenges. If you have anything, definitely yes. Lack of skilled team members. So this is one of the challenge. Selecting test cases for regression testing. Okay. So optimize, you have to optimize after you do thorough testing. Sometimes you have to optimize the tests for regression suit. So that is one of the challenge that you can mention. Lack of resource and training. Okay, if you have not given proper KTs, right, knowledge transfer sessions, so then you will struggle in that stage. So you can mention about it. Okay, test environment issue. So I was mentioning in the first, right, unstable application, right. So test environment issues happens occurs. Sometimes, mostly, we have faced such issues related to test environment. While testing, it goes down. Okay, maybe because of some issues, might not be specific to one reason. There are multiple reasons, right? So, if you remember or recall any, you can tell about it. How many test cases you can execute in a day, right? So, this is one thing that they will try to understand your execution or your speed. How can you make out per day? It depends on the complexity of the story, right? So it completely depends. Sometimes a very easy story also we will take some time, but sometimes very complex story we will take a little lesser time. So that happens. It is not like a fixed time we can say, right? It completely depends on the complexity. If it is a regression test case, you can just specify how much you can execute it based on your previous experience. You can tell that there is many test cases that I can execute per day when it comes to regression. Okay. In case of news story, okay, it would be around 10 to 15 test cases I can execute. So it completely depends on the complexity. And in here, you can mention about if you have a why will you be able to execute 10 to 15? Sometimes it would be more also, more test cases also you will be able to execute. Sometimes it would be like even like 4 to 5 also. Why? Because it depends. If there is any issue, you will start debugging that issue and understanding that issue. If it is causing any other issue, so there are like the steps that you other thing that you will follow. So in case of news story, you cannot uh, directly tell that this is how much I can be be able to execute. Exact number we cannot give. Approximately you can tell. This was a story that I have tested, which I took only this much of time. This was a new feature. We were committed to deliver this in one sprint. So we executed almost 8 to 10 new test cases for that. So that is how you can tell based on the work that you have already done. So most of the time these type of questions will be asked for experienced candidates only. How many defects you have found till now in your last project? So this is important question, I would say. Okay. So be careful while giving the number. They will expect you to tell a proper number so that it is a good practice actually. Whenever you say I have found so many doesn't mean that it wouldn't sound good. Okay. If you give a proper good number, it would sound really good and better. I have been working in this project since an year and have worked on regression testing as well as new features, and I'm proactive in identifying the issues. Okay. I have found critical, major, and minor issues in my project. Okay. As per as per I remember, I have found more than 40 plus defects in a new feature and around 18 plus regression defects, which includes critical, major, and blocker issues as well. So you just specify approximate number. You don't have to specify exact number, okay, which is acceptable, right? When it comes to the project in 1 year, based on how much work you have done, you can just make a note of how much you were able to find till now in your current project and how much days you have worked. All that matters. You based on that, you just give some rough figure. Have you ever involved in production deployment? After deployment, what are the things you check to make sure it is working fine? So the application is working fine. How can you make sure that? So if you are involved in that, you can say yes. Otherwise, you can say no. In case if you say yes, what things you can say is once the deployment is done, smoke tests will run as it is integrated in the pipeline. Okay. As soon as the deployment completes, it will trigger the smoke test if it is included in the CI/CD pipeline. If it is so, you can mention about it. Also, we will manually check some functionalities as well as the latest changes availability in the prod environment. So manually also you will check, suppose in the current release, you are uh, deploying changes related to some features. Okay. After deployment, you can go and check whether that new feature is available now in the prod or not. Okay. To the real time users, whether it is available or not. That thing you can check. And in case of failures, what will be your next step? You can mention about it. If there are any issues, we will report it in the meeting and the developers will take a look for the error logs. If the issue is known, then we will not be considering those. Sometimes what happens, while during the production deployment itself, we will check the new features, as well as we will run the smoke tests, and we will manually also check some of the things. Okay. In that case, if something goes wrong during the deployment itself, you can report it immediately. You can either in the call itself, you can bring it up. Okay, and speak about what issue or challenges that you are facing, so that the developer immediately can check the error logs. Okay, so that is one possible way. Or if any smoke test gets failed, immediately you can check why it is failing manually. Also you can give a try, and then finally you can tell that this is not working or this is working based on. Okay, and sometimes what happens, if the issue is known, then will not be considered, right? Some of the issues will be known issues. In the logs, sometimes you will be able to see some of the errors which are commonly you are seeing it. So, but that is not affecting any functionality. If something which is known issue, then you can ignore such type of issues. Okay. In case if there is any major issue, we will have to revert back the changes during the deployment itself. If you find that there is some major issue you have found, the application itself is not loading, so that is one of the big issue or the blocker issue, right? You are not able to log into the application itself in that case. So at that time it is a hard time, so you have to revert back the changes whatever you have sent to the production. Okay, deploy to the production. So this type of answer, which is in experience, based on your experience, you can talk about it even more also. If you do not have documentation available to test, what would be your approach to test the application? So this is also one important question. So all the questions today we went through are mostly important questions only, right? So this is also one of the important question. To answer this, whenever we do not have proper or enough documentation to test, firstly, I would prefer to perform exploratory testing. So, this is the keyword that they will expect. If there is no documentation or less documentation, what would be your first approach? First, you have to talk about exploratory testing. Okay. During this testing, I will get some understanding of the application. So the first approach what you have to follow is also to do an exploratory testing and understand the application. Okay, it is a difficult task, though we have to understand the application correctly before testing it. Okay, my another approach would be checking with team members or seniors of the project, which are who are in the project. You can go and check with them. I will check with other team members so that it would help me to get good understanding or more understanding. First is you have to do an exploratory testing. If you could not understand it, then you can get in touch with any of the senior testers, okay, of the same project. If you have any of them, you can get in touch, right? And then you can get some more information about the application, or if you have any questions or not, you can get the clarification there. In case of any questions or doubt, I will connect with onshore team and get the clarifications. Okay. If there are any doubts or question, I'll connect with onshore. The further members you can connect with too. If your team members or stakeholders, mostly they will be located in the onshore. In that case, you can say that wherever your product owner or business analyst, so you will get in touch with them and get the better understanding of the application. So if there is no documentation, so these are the other approaches that you can follow. So these are the things that you can tell whenever this type of question is asked. How do you decide when you have tested enough? So this is most common question that arises. How do you stop? At what time you consider stopping the testing? right? If we reach testing deadlines or release deadlines, that is where we consider, yes, this is the time to stop the testing now. By reaching the decided pass percentage of the test cases, how much maximum is passed, based on that, we will decide whether we can move forward or not. If the risk in the project is under the acceptable limit, sometimes if there is more risk in releasing it to the production, once we give sign off, right, we will have to release it to the production. Sometimes if there is challenge in that or risk involved in that, at that time we cannot take risk. But when we see that there is no such risk found, okay, at that time we can give the sign off and we'll decide this is much of testing is enough. If all the high priority bugs and blockers are fixed, so whatever the bugs or issues we log for that particular ticket, if those are fixed, okay, then also we can consider, we can stop the testing. So there are no further issues that is found for that particular ticket. So that time we can consider closing it. If we meet or met the acceptance criteria, once we find that we have no blockers or no defects found and there are no much risks involved in giving sign off and all the requirements whatever is described is met, so all these things we will consider, okay, to say that this much of testing is enough. Okay, so these are the points that you can talk about, and if you really have any examples with your previous experience, that also you can mention. So certain times you how do you decide it that this much testing is enough? You can give the example based on your experience also. Tell some key points to consider while writing a bug. Okay, some of the things that you consider before logging a bug, there are some of the things that you have to do from your end to make sure that that is a real bug rather than logging it as a duplicate or a bug which is not relevant. Okay, first try to reproduce the bug 2 to 3 times. Okay, if it is happening again and again, then you can think of, right? And what is the next step? Use some keywords to your bug and search in the defect tracking tool. Suppose in case of Jira, you can search with, suppose in case the application itself is not loading, okay, you can search with whatever the application you are using. Just give some keywords and try to search if there is any previous defect that anyone had logged for a similar kind of issue. Okay, you can reopen the same, or also you can say that this is what the resolution you can follow. If they have mentioned it in comment, you can refer to them saying that, so you can refer this bug, so this has happened already, so that also you can give some much information. Check in similar modules. If that is happening, you can just give a try in other modules or other browsers, okay, different types, or you can refer to some other documentations if available before you judge that, yeah, you confirm that that is an issue. Report the problem immediately. So as soon as you find it and you just refer few of the things, and then you find that you finally concluded that yes, this is a defect, then report that defect immediately. Write detailed steps to reproduce the bug. So this is where most of the testers do not fail. Why? Because if you do not provide the steps to reproduce, the developers might not be knowing how to reproduce it. Okay, if you are coordinating between onshore and offshore, that is a difficult task. So it is better you provide a detailed step, what after what you have done, to so that you got this exact issue, so how they can reproduce it. So this is important step. Advisable to illustrate the issue by using proper screenshot, whatever screenshot, or you can also attach the recording so that you can mention, so these are the steps I will perform. Okay, whenever the interviewer asks, so you can say that I will try to reproduce the issue for multiple times, and I'll search in the Jira or whatever defect tracking tool you are using, and if I found that is an that is the same instance that is occurring, I can refer this ticket, and also I can check in the different modules and report it. I'll be reporting it immediately, and my next step is to log it as a bug. While logging it as a bug, I'll provide a detailed steps to reproduce so that it will be helpful for the developers, okay, to reproduce the issue. And also I will provide the proper screenshots or the recordings, whatever is required, okay, for them to for you to prove you are proving that there is a defect, right? Proofread your bug report twice or thrice before posting it. So bug report whatever you before you log it, just read it twice or thrice, or you can get it reviewed from your seniors or someone also. Okay, so that it should be understandable. Major concern is it should be understandable. So if you say that all these points that you consider, so the interviewer will get to know that yes, you are following a right strategy or the right thing while before logging a defect. Okay, when will be the cross browser testing done? Okay, cross browser testing is a type of non functional test which helps us to ensure that our website or the web application works as expected in various web browsers. Okay, so you can just give a brief of what exactly is cross browser testing, when you will be performing it is the question, right? So basically, based on the number of users using the application on different browsers, we consider them for testing. And it is completely a need based testing way we will be performing it. So, what exactly we consider before doing the cross browser testing is, suppose some of the applications is made only for Android users, so then you don't have to worry about iOS. Okay, in the same way some of the websites will be designed only for the Chrome users. Okay. At that time, you don't have to worry about other browsers. But some of the applications, they have to see the compatibility of how these applications are behaving in different browsers, because there are a lot of other users also using different browsers. Some of the majorly when it come to Mac users, they use Safari, and on Windows, Chrome is most commonly used. So like that, considering that how many much users use the browser is what matters. Some of the web browsers like Opera and all, sometimes the chances of people using it is less. Okay, so that's the reason some of the browsers that you can ignore, but majorly what people chooses to use, right, that you can consider, okay, while testing it. We do cross browser testing on different browsers, both manual and automated way. To do cross browser testing manually, we create tests for each browsers and execute it manually on each browser. So you can also explain the process, like how what things you will consider while performing the cross browser testing. So majorly with the same test case, also you can attach a field saying that these are the browsers that we will be using to test this particular scenario. Okay, that also you can do rather than creating a different test cases. Okay, otherwise it completely depends on your company. If your company wants to have a different test case for each of the browsers, you can maintain them also. Every browser displays a website in their own style. We usually cannot have all browsers on one machine, right? So each browser has their own features to showcase their unique presence. While testing a website, we need to ensure that our website is appearing same across all browsers. To do this testing, we need to have all browsers. Fortunately, there are some tools to perform cross-browser testing without testing individually in a manual way. So you could be thinking, how can we do whether we can install all the browsers on the same machine and perform it? No, there are certain tools like you can opt for Lambda test or browser stack. So these are the websites or the application that provides to perform cross browser testing. you know you can use multiple browsers there, and with different versions also will be there, so you can opt for any of them and perform the cross browser testing. So that also you have to remember which tool you are using to perform this cross browser testing. So all this you can talk about when they ask about when you will be performing cross browser testing or how you will be performing cross browser testing. Okay, so moving ahead, can you briefly explain about mobile application testing and what it includes? So, when we perform mobile application testing, there also it is kind of we will check whether the application works well with multiple devices and versions. Okay, so that is one important thing. Usability of features on a mobile screen, how user friendly it is, how the usability of the application is, whether all the fields are displaying or not. All these things you will be checking as part of this mobile testing. Testing it on different mobile platforms like Android and iOS. Installations, uninstalling, launching the application with network, without network, testing functionality. Okay, all these things that you will consider while performing the mobile application testing. So let me give you an example. Suppose your application, okay, you have built an application, your application supports both Android and iOS. That time you have to perform both Android and iOS testing, right? So there are certain applications like emulator and simulators also you can use, and in the same way, whatever I mentioned, these emulator simulator, right? So you can use browser stack or Lambda test. Some of the applications will provide you the option to select different mobile applications and different browsers. Also, iPad, all this you can test it on the same application. Okay, so that way you can perform the mobile application testing. And also, if you have real device, so that is well and good. You can talk about it if you're using the real device for testing the web application. So these are the things that you have to remember. How do you test a customer facing application? So this is important, right? While you perform testing, most of the applications would be a customer facing applications like banking applications or any loan applications or e-commerce applications. So most of them could be related to the real time users. So with any application that we test, we are trying to see if a certain set of requirements are met by the application or not. Okay, so um, first we have to make sure that basic requirement, the happy path should be working fine at first. By okay, sorry, but when it comes to a user facing side, apart from concentrating on the functionality, we also have to look into few usability features, maybe performance and security aspect, also to the certain extent. So all these things that you consider while performing the customer facing application testing. Suppose in case of e-commerce, it is important to check the performance, because at the same time lot of people could be using the application, so at that time it is more important for them. And also when it comes to banking application, security plays an important role, so they can also consider the security, how secure the application is. And the user friendliness is very much important. The text whatever we provide and the fields whatever is present, that should be understandable by the end user. So it should be in simple words, it should not be complicated so that the user will get confused. So you have to give attention to such things while performing the customer facing application testing, so that you can mention about. For an example, if it is loan management site, we need to look at uh, Are the new customer able to apply for loan? Okay. Is it possible for a new user to apply for loan? Are the existing customer able to access their loan information? If the interest percent applied to the loan amount is correct or not. So these are the functional ways, as well as from the UI perspective, you can verify how user friendly it is, and other aspects also you can consider. So this is all about some of the scenario based interview questions we spoke today. So hope these series were useful for you. And if you have liked this video, please do not forget to like this, share this, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.